Today we are making my favorite curry of all time, a pork vindaloo. And it's redolent of warm spices, balanced aromatics, and juicy, succulent pork. And Julia's here and she's going to show us a version of this Goan dish that we can make at home.
That's right. So this is the traditional vindaloo, not spicy, just fragrant. And it has 3 key ingredients. The first is pork. This is a 3.5 or so pound pork butt. That's from the shoulder. You also need coconut vinegar, which you can find at Indian grocery stores or online, and Kashmiri chili powder. All right, so to get started, we're gonna make a spice paste that's gonna flavor the pork, starting with some fresh ginger. You want about a 2-inch piece of ginger. I know you love this trick of using the spoon to peel ginger.
Very much so. You're just taking that little bit of peel off and leaving the rest of it.
That's it.
And the spoon can get into those nubs.
That's the thing. Oh, that smells good. All right, I'm just gonna slice this thin, give it a head start before we put it into the blender.
Okay.
Into the blender jar it goes. Now we're gonna add 6 cloves of garlic. You just wanna make sure they're peeled and trimmed, which these are. I've got a few spices lined up here, but this one is the most important. It is Kashmiri chili powder. Now you can find this online or in an Indian market. It has a very mild but bright flavor and beautiful color. Just 3 tablespoons of Kashmiri chili powder.
And we've got a great workaround if you can't find that Kashmiri chili powder. It involves guajillo chilies, black tea, which adds an astringent flavor, and a little bit of paprika. We've got instructions for that on our website.
All right, next up, a tablespoon of paprika, tablespoon of ground cumin, 2 teaspoons of table salt, a teaspoon of black pepper. Now we're into the little spices that just add nuance. So this is a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of my favorite, cardamom. Oh,
Yes, yes, yes.
oh, I love those warm spices. And just a 1/4 teaspoon of ground clove and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. All right, so that's it for the spices. Notice I left out anything too spicy. And if you do like a little bit of heat in your vindaloo, you could always add some cayenne, but I like this one on the mild side, so I'm leaving it out.
Lovely.
All right, last but not least, a little bit of water to help things go around. This is 3/4 cup of water. All right, so we're just gonna blend this into a nice smooth paste. Takes a minute or 2. I'm gonna stop and scrape down the sides of the blended jar as I need to. All right, let's get in there and see how it looks. Actually, you can see this is a pretty smooth paste. Yeah. Can you smell it from there?
I sure can.
Yeah, it's very fragrant. All right, so I'm just gonna set this aside while we focus on the pork.
Okay.
So here I have a 3 to 3.5 pound pork butt. That's from the shoulder. Perfect for braising and making stew. It gets nice and soft throughout the long cooking time.
Right.
All right, so now you can see there's some hunks of fat in there. We wanna cut the meat down into stew-sized pieces, or about, you know, 1 inch big. What I like to do when I'm kind of tackling a big piece of meat like this is I cut it into almost steaks that are about the size I want the pieces of meat. And then it just makes it easier to go in and trim out the pieces of fat.
Agree.
So I'm gonna take my time and just cut up the pork, taking off some of that fat and silver skin as you go along, leaving a little bit of fat, of course. A little goes a long way for flavor.
And in general, the hard fat is what you want to take off.
That's
the
it.
soft fat will melt a lot easier.
All right, there we go. Trim and meat. Now I'm gonna take this spice paste, pour it all over the pork. Oh, that's it. Oh, goodness. Okay, so now we can just clean this up and get cooking.
Excellent.
All right, so here I have a tablespoon of vegetable oil. Just gonna heat it up in the pot over medium heat.
All right.
While that heats up, I'm just gonna chop an onion pretty fine. This is a nice big onion. Should yield about a 1.5 cups. First cut down towards the root end, but not through. Second cut horizontally. And then third cut straight down into a nice fine chop. All right, our oil is nice and hot. We're gonna cook them on their own for a good 7 to 9 minutes, just until they start to soften and get a little brown.
Okay.
Oh, you can see those onions have really cooked down and they're nice and golden. In goes the spice pork. We didn't marinate the pork, and a lot of recipes marinate the pork in coconut vinegar, which is a classic flavor in vindaloo. We are indeed going to add it. When we marinated the meat in coconut vinegar, or we added it to the pot at the very beginning, we found it dried out the pork butt. So instead, we're gonna hold back on the vinegar and just add it partway through. All right, so it's been a couple minutes and the pork has started to release some of its liquid and the mixture is bubbling. Time to put this in the oven, which is just a much easier way to cook the braise because there's not a lot of liquid, prevents anything from scorching. So we're gonna put this in a nice low 325-degree oven. We're just gonna cook it for 40 minutes.
Okay.
Oh goodness. Smells good, doesn't it?
It smells like heaven.
Yeah, so the vindaloo is not done at this point. The pork needs a little more time in the oven to turn tender. But now's when we're gonna add that important coconut vinegar, which lends, a nice brightness and fruitiness to the sauce.
It wouldn't be vindaloo without it.
It would not. All right, so we're gonna stir in 1/3 of a cup of coconut vinegar. And if you can't find coconut vinegar, you could substitute cider vinegar. All right, that looks pretty good. So cover goes back on. Back into that 325-degree oven. Needs another 40 to 50 minutes for that pork to get good and tender. But after 20 minutes, I'm gonna take the lid off and let that sauce reduce down.
Okay. We like plenty of tart vinegar in our vindaloo, but it turns out that when we add the vinegar to the pot is very important. Many recipes start by marinating meat with vinegar, which imparts a tangy flavor into the meat. Proteins in muscle meat contain mostly negative charges. Since similar charges repel each other, the proteins stay separated. That allows the space between them to fill with water. Vinegar, however, is an acid, which means it's full of positively charged ions. When the vinegar meets the protein, the charges cancel out. Now there's nothing holding the proteins apart. So when the cooking starts, the muscle fibers begin to squeeze together, forcing out juices from the meat. This can result in meat that feels dry. For our recipe, we skip the acidic marination step and add the vinegar to the pot late in the cooking process. This allows the meat to retain its juices and imparts a flavorful tang to our vindaloo. Oh, the oven back there has never smelled so good.
It smells good, doesn't it? All right, now I'm gonna test to see how tender the pork is using a fork. Oh, fork went in with very little resistance. That's a sign that it's done.
It's a great sign.
All right, so just gonna let this sit for about 10 minutes, let it cool off a bit. It's a little hot to eat. Stir it around, make sure everything's coated with sauce, and then we can try it. All right, it's been resting for 10 minutes and time for a taste. I have a nice bed of basmati rice here. Oh, yep. A little more. I know this is your fave.
It is absolutely my favorite.
I'm gonna go in for some of that sauce. All right. Moment of truth.
Moment of truth. Oh, it does fall apart.
Oh.
Everything is balanced.
No, all the spices are in concert with each other. And it's not spicy, it's just fragrant.
It's bright, it's tangy, it's vibrant because you held off on the vinegar.
So it has just a little bit of a fresh kick.
Right? This is gold star.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
It is the best. You're the best. Thanks, Julia.
You're welcome.
Well, if you want to make this gorgeous vindaloo at home, make a flavorful spice paste to season the pork. Use the oven instead of the stovetop for even cooking, and add the vinegar halfway through the cooking time. So from America's Test Kitchen, a warm, vibrant, and fragrant Goan pork vindaloo. Yum.
Thanks for watching America's Test Kitchen. What'd you think?
Well, leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or you can just say hello.
You can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
I'll see you later.